Hi, Govanan Melanin. This is Douglas of the Dunedin Rangers. I'm joined today by Ryan, who is also has his own YouTube channel called Earthen Rangers. Please check it out. He has lots of videos about plants, edible plants, survival, and fishing.
Love me some fishing.
Yeah, I learned a lot from him, especially the edible wild plants. He's going to be teaching us something about the sacred four. Now, what is sacred about the sacred four?
Yeah, so this might kind of be a personal interpretation, but my interpretation of what's sacred about it is that these plants can commonly be found anywhere throughout the Northern Hemisphere, and a few of them can be found worldwide. And what's really amazing is nearly all species within this plant families are edible. And so it's really a special, powerful plant. A lot of times when you're going into a survival situation, or if you become lost into a survival situation, these plants are going to kind of be a backbone and a staple, food-wise, for your experience.
All right, great. Thanks a lot.
Yeah.
So we're going to take a look at the sacred four is what? The
Wild grasses.
wild grasses, oaks.
Oaks.
Let's see, cattail. I like
Cattails.
cattail. And pine.
Pines. You got
All
it.
right,
Got
sure.
it.
So today we're going to be looking at the grasses, right?
Today we're going to be looking at the grasses, and this is something that's really special because there's a lot of invasive grasses everywhere. And as you know, being a ranger, we all try to take that caretaking ethic, that conservation ethic. And so if you're harvesting, especially an invasive grass, it's something that is absolutely beneficial for the environment and beneficial for the harvester.
Sure, sure. Okay, let's get on with it.
All right.
Orcs have been here. Okay, go.
Today we're going to be looking at a very special plant, and this plant is widespread. You can find this plant almost anywhere in the world, and for sure in the Northern Hemisphere you can find this plant growing. And this plant is grasses. Surprisingly, all grasses are edible, as long as they're truly in the grass family. So you might have already eaten some of these plants in your life, things like corn, sugarcane, all from the grass family. Even your lawn, if it's a true grass, is edible. So let's go ahead and take a look at some of the wild plants that I'm seeing here. These plants that we're looking at are invasive. They are not native to California, so if you do find them out in your environment, I welcome you to harvest them. It's not going to hurt the landscape to harvest these plants. So as we come down here, we're going to take a look at two main grasses today, and these are pretty widespread invasive plants, especially in California. By the way, California has one of the worst invasive plant issues, and that occurs in the grasslands. But before we get into that cool story, let's go ahead and take a look at some of these plants. The first one we're going to look at is one of the most common invasive grasses in California, and that is this guy. This is wild oat. We have two types of oat here, invasive slender wild oat and invasive fat wild oat. I believe this is the fat wild oat, and a little bit later in a different video we're going to break these plants apart and show you guys how to identify the two different ones. But essentially this stalk of grass is where oats come from, and each of these little fruits coming off of the grass is an oat. And so you can essentially go through a field of oat grasses, harvest all of these oats, and then grind them up and cook them. And you can make anything you could think of: oatmeal, oat cakes, whatever you want. Now, that is a bit of a tedious process, but it's amazing because it's something that's completely accessible pretty much wherever you're going to be at. Now, one thing I want to mention with the seeds of grasses in general is that you never want to consume any grasses that have black spots on them. Grasses can be extremely susceptible to molds and mildews, and essentially if it has any black blotches or spots on the blades of grass or on the seeds, you want to leave those alone. A lot of the different molds that can grow on grass species are actually toxic, so that would render that plant toxic and not safe to consume. So really important. Now, another wonderful property with grass species is that the grass is edible itself. I'm sure as many of you have had and purchased things like shots of wheatgrass before. This is the same exact thing, and it's going to give you nearly the same vitamin and mineral content that a shot of wheatgrass would give you. Now we see the blades of grass here. I can completely pick this, throw it in my mouth, and chew it. Now it's important, this plant, this specific oak grass, has already seeded, which means the blades of grass are going to be too fibrous to digest. But what you can do at this point is pick the blades of grass, chew them, and then swallow the juices, just like you'd be drinking wheatgrass shot, and then spit out the fibrous material. Now, if the plant is very young, and let's take a look at some younger plants here, like this little oak grass growing right here. This guy, the leaves are much softer and much less fibrous than this older plant right here. And so this one you can actually just pick, throw in your mouth, chew it up, and you're totally good to go, and you can swallow the entire blades of grass on this. So really cool. Again, grasses are super widespread, and we're going to take a look at one other grass species here. This is called farmer's foxtail or farmer's barley. And I'm sure you guys have seen this before. As it dries out, they get stuck in your socks and so forth. I'm sure we've all had to experience this plant. But this is actually the barley grain and where barley comes from. And the same thing applies. You can harvest the fruiting seed head for grains that you can make anything you can dream of with the grains. And then the blades of grass are edible as well. So really awesome properties. And real quick, before we end this video, I just want to talk about something really special here in California. You know, most of our grasslands here in California are completely invasive. We've all heard the term, the Golden Hills of California. Now, the Golden Hills of California is not true. It never used to be like that. When we're looking at, for example, the Diablo Mountain Range and it's all golden grasses, that is nearly all invasive wild oak grass. What our native grasses typically are bunch grasses. Like our state grass, for example, is the purple needle grass. And these grasses are amazing because they can live up to 60, 70, 80 years old, each individual plant. And as they age, they get wider in diameter and they get taller. And these plants can end up being 6, 7, some of them 8 feet tall. So if you kind of envision the Golden Hills of California, it used to have these giant tufts of native bunch grasses and then low herbaceous plants growing in between them. And there used to be animals like the pronghorn sheep, gray wolves. We used to have a native California jaguar. So many beautiful species like bears and so forth used to roam those grassland hills. Tule elk, a lot of wonderful species. And so our native grasslands used to look more like the savanna grasslands of Africa compared to what they look like today. So kind of a cool project. There is a couple preserves in California that are doing native grass restoration, but it's a very daunting project. But definitely check them out. It's a very special thing to see, especially if you have one close to you in your area. So thank you guys for joining me. This is again the wild grass, and we went over their edible properties today. Really awesome because you can find them almost anywhere in the world. Thank you so much for joining, and as always, stay aware and protect.
All right, Ryan said these grasses would be edible, so I'm going to try it out for myself, see if it works. Looks like they've got some fairly tender grass leaves or
No, not that one. No, just kidding.
Is it okay?
Yes.
Okay. And I'm just getting the blades of grass rather than the stems. I think those are going to be a little bit juicier. These are barley, and I'm going to be drinking some barley. not beer. We're going to save that for later, but you know. So I'm just harvesting. These are pretty tender leaves. They come off pretty light, pretty easily. They're not fibrous. So this is what I got, a little handful of, you know, blades. I could certainly harvest more. I just took a few seconds to do this. So I could have a whole fistful. Jam it in my mouth. Shoot up. First thing I taste is a sort of sugar sweetness. Very tangy. Sort of a grassy aftertaste, as you might imagine. Nothing bitter or off-putting at all. It's really pleasant. I can see drinking a bunch of this. I'm sure it's full of vitamins and stuff like that.
A lot of minerals.
But since I'm not a cow, I'm not going to assume that I can digest this. Maybe I can, maybe I can't. I'd rather not. I want to stick with the good stuff. So that was good. See, I'm not dead.
Yet.
And not yet, right. Who knows? But I'll tell you what, if I'm out in the woods and I'm lost, I got to build a shelter, I don't know where the food is, I'm getting hungry, a couple handfuls of this might be just all I need to get a little energy to get things done. So there it is. Thanks very much.
Good job, sir. All right, well, I wanted to say thank you very much, Brother Ranger Douglas. It's been an honor to be on your channel.
Yes.
He has some great content, so if you're not already subscribed, please subscribe to the Dunedain Rangers. Some epic stuff going on there.
Well, thank you. Yeah, if you like what you saw, like this video, go ahead and subscribe. You'll see more of this stuff. And if you're interested in Ryan's deeper insights into survival and fishing,
It's deeper.
Earthen Rangers, really awesome YouTube channel. You can learn a lot from that.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. See you next time.
See you guys later.